You're listening to Conversations on Careers and Professional Life. I'm your host, Gregory Heller, from the MBA Career Management Office at the Foster School of Business at the University of Washington. This season, I'll be joined by co-host Jonathan Azoff, the co-founder and general partner of Snowcap, a venture capital firm investing in deep tech climate solutions in our global supply chains, for a series we're calling Conversations on Careers in Climate Tech. Welcome, Jonathan.
Thanks, Gregory. Over the course of this season, we'll talk to entrepreneurs across climate tech and sustainability about their careers and the career opportunities for job seekers looking to impact one of the greatest challenges facing humanity. We'll break each conversation into 2 episodes, the first focusing on our guest's business, how it came to be, who their customers are, and what kind of impact they hope to have.
And the second will focus on the advice our guest has for job seekers looking to make a pivot into this space. This season is made possible with funding from Snowcap. You can learn more about their fund and portfolio of investments at snocap.vc. In this second part of our conversation with Adital Ella of Criaterra, we'll be diving into advice for people who may not be coming from a scientific background but are interested in getting involved in the climate tech space, whether through starting their own company or joining an innovative firm like Criaterra.
We're seeing people look to transition into roles that can have a real impact on solving the climate crisis, but they may not have technical expertise, at least not enough to develop the core technology or the innovation themselves. This part of our interview with Adital offers advice on how to approach deeply scientific companies like Criaterra, or how to start your own entrepreneurial journey into climate tech.
Be sure to check out the first part of our conversation if you haven't already, but we hope you enjoy this second part of our conversation on careers in climate tech with Adital Ella. I think this is a great place to transition to second segment of the interview. So this was part 1. And for our listeners, you should play the next episode for part 2. And then we're going to cut and we're going to do a whole thing. Okay. This is great. So this is totally great. So we've got probably about 20, 25 minutes that we'll do the second part here. And I'll do just a little bit of an intro read just so that I know where it is on the tape, so to speak.
Okay.
We're back with Adital Ella from Criaterra. And in the first part of this interview, we really talked about the business and how the business has grown and how it evolved and what the product is. But now in this second part, we're going to talk a little bit about advice that Adital has from her experience for folks who may want to move in this direction of either starting a firm or joining a firm that is doing something in this climate impact space. So Adital, welcome back to Conversations on Careers in Climate Tech.
Thank you.
Many of our listeners are not coming from, let's say, a scientific background. They're not likely to be the person coming up with the idea that is going to have the climate impact. They may have been software engineers or school teachers, but they want to do work that has a real impact on solving the climate crisis. And now a subset of them, many of the ones that I work with every day, are getting their MBA so that they can take on business roles, whether that's product management, marketing, finance, operations, supply chain, or general management. And as we finished up the first part of this, we were talking about finding that connection with that person you're bringing on board. So I'm wondering if you have any advice for people who would be applying or want to get involved with a company like yours about how to position themselves for a business role that maybe it's the first time, like you mentioned in the earlier part of this interview, that person who had been on your production line and then became your operations manager. What is the advice that you would give to someone when they're looking to approach a company like yours?
So for me, I get approached all the time. And of course, we're not hiring all the time. But the letters that do shine through, I do meet the people. Because you never know, and to find really good people that are really motivated is not an easy task. So for me, the most important is the language, is describing the motivation, describing why they decided to approach me, what they saw in Criaterra that made them think that, wow, I would like to be part of this. Anything that shows, some research, some depth into why they want to be part of this. For me, this is definitely a door opener.
Great. So it sounds like having a really good understanding of the company or the problem space and being able to communicate that effectively to the founder or the person at the company so that you're speaking their language, so that they feel that heart connection, I think, as you mentioned in the earlier part of this
And
interview.
from a personal point of view, why are you motivated? What touches you? What makes you really want to be part of this? I mean, that because this is when it becomes sustainable. This is when it becomes a journey that could be for many years and not just kind of a short affair.
So going back to that, in part one, you said the advice you'd give your younger self is don't start something unless you're willing to commit a decade to it. Do you think that you'd provide similar advice to someone looking not to start something, but to get into a company that is working in this space, that they should be thinking about the long-term commitment?
I think, I mean, that would be best. I mean, I don't think that I would really expect somebody that's just applying for a role to feel that they want to dedicate the next 10 years to this company. I mean, with this the generations of today, it's also very, very different from the way they think.
Yeah.
But I would like to feel that their motivation to the field is something that is very solid. So then, as long as they feel that they are fulfilled through the role, that their motivation is being answered, then why not? Why not grow with a startup like ours that wants to have people that, I mean, for me, the best managers were people that started with basic roles and then grew to manage a field. So I think that that's the best thing for a company and for a person many times is to grow within the same organization. So I think I would expect them to want to stay at least a year or two, yes. But I would hope that sense of if it really works, I can see myself grow with the organization. I mean, that would definitely help.
Well, and having a real commitment, at least to the mission,
Yeah.
whether that's the impact mission or the specific niche or technology, whether they stay at the company for 2, 5, or 10 years. You don't want someone who's just maybe like dipping their toe in this, like, oh, I think this might be a fun thing to do for a little bit. You want someone who really has either demonstrated or stated or intends to be committed to
Yeah.
the mission and the solution space.
Yeah, like in an interview, you could really sense when somebody's, very concentrated about themselves and how they want to entertain themselves through a role, or they really want to collaborate to make something happen together. It's a very different mindset.
Can I ask a question here? I feel like with the references to the heart, to synergies, to almost unpacking people and putting them back together to like determine who they are and how they work with you and so on and so forth. There's this feeling I keep getting of there's something I think cultural in your business or in your even in your career path. There's this thing you tend to lean into, which is like the culture of a business, which is of course an agglomeration of all the people that you work with. Am I reading that right? There's something there that is important to you and how you think about your own career and how you think about your business?
Yeah, yes, I mean, very much. Criaterra is very much a quest. I mean, it's something I had to do. I could not do it, and it's a home. It's my life journey. It definitely comes from the heart or from the gut or whatever you want to call it. The people that join, the team that is formed is really driven by that. It's really about creating a family around this quest that will make it a reality. So it's very much about alignment. It's very much about being dedicated to the bigger idea. We don't succeed with everybody. There's always different people in a team. But, I have some people that were like early team members that are not part of Criaterra until today, but they're still kind of my little brothers and sisters in a sense, because when they come from an alignment, then it's kind of a connection forever.
Yeah, the I totally resonate with that. And I guess the question was also like meant to look more at your career as well, even before Criaterra. It seems like at some point you made this decision for yourself that not only am I going to focus on this world, but I'm going to do the sort of things that activate me and make me feel good about what I'm working on. I guess that's where I wanted to get into is like, at what point did you decide that like, I'm going to surround myself with people who are passionate about this? Like, I'm going to go after this. I think there's, at least I imagine there's going to be some folks listening to this podcast who might be there at that point in their life right now thinking like, I am sick of whatever it is I'm doing. I'm ready to, embrace this. Like what was that thing for you? What was the activation point for you?
So I was a industrial design student, started in 95, and 95, 96, I was still kind of doing what I was told. But then in kind of the end of the second year of school, I was like, what am I doing? I mean, this cannot be what we're being taught. This cannot be what we are doing. And the term sustainability was coined in 92, so there was not a lot of discourse around these things. But I intuitively felt there had to be another way, and I decided to explore for it. So I did an exchange in Germany in 97 that was, of course, more advanced in kind of the eco-design thinking. I started collaborating. There was an international network called O2 at the time. So I started being part of that. At one point, I was kind of in the management of it. And yeah, just put myself into the groups that really explored that, even if it was very early. And there was very few people. There was a network with one person from every country, from Japan to whatever. It was really kind of rare people that were looking for a different way. For me personally, there was also another layer because, as I mentioned before, at that time, the eco design was what really ruled the game, which will now it comes back as the EPDs and the calculations and so on. But the only approach was let's do the same but less bad. And I intuitively understood there had to be a way to do things really good from the beginning, not compromise. So not firing cement in 1400 degrees or instead of 1600, or not even 600 instead of 1600. It's like, how do we really avoid the chemical change within cement to begin with? So I kind of intuitively found myself asking like deep questions about how do we approach things in a different way. And this is why I traveled to India to look for other approaches to making products. And I read anthropological studies about different technologies from different times in the Middle East and other areas, because I felt like I had to feed myself from a different mindset to find my own path. So that was my own little journey.
I love that. And, we often celebrate, at least here in America, though I think in Israel there's a similar celebration of innovative thinkers. They're almost like they go against the grain a little bit. Yet we find in life that almost the opposite happens. There's a book, I think it's called Orbiting the Hairball or something like that. It was written by the
fantastic
right.
book.
Yeah, it's the Hallmark founder, right? Wrote this, and it's all about how Go ahead, Gregory.
Orbiting the Giant Hairball.
There it is.
It's a guy who was a designer at Hallmark.
Hallmark, okay.
And I actually read it just last year, and it was recommended very highly by just an amazing innovator here in Seattle, Richard Tate, who passed away just a couple years ago, but he had come and talked to our students a lot, and he tells this story of actually finding that book just in a magical moment, like stuck in an airport bookstore and like closing his eyes and just reaching out and grabbing that book, and how it really changed him. It's a fantastic book. Highly recommend it.
Yeah.
And it is really about how do you stay focused on creativity and doing that thing that you love and not get stuck in all of the business stuff and politics that are happening.
Well, thank you for remembering the name of the book. It is something that I see constantly, and now with kids, I notice it too, like how just the pressure of life sucks the creativity out of people. And I think you use the word intuition. Some people might call it a calling, like other people might just say it's a preference. Whatever it ends up being, it's almost inane to us to want to like resist that pressure a little bit and to go in a direction that your heart or your mind is telling you to go. And I think if I were to distill your story a little bit, it's almost like you listened to that inner voice and you just stayed curious and kept kind of digging and digging. And then you found your people and you found out that there is more on the other side of that maybe seemingly inescapable wall. So I don't know. When I hear stuff like that, I think that's really inspiring. And that for me is the big takeaway. It's like you've got an inner voice or an intuition. You shouldn't be afraid to kind of see where it takes you.
And to be honest, for me, it was even more extreme. I was miserable until I agreed to do that. I mean, it was really, there was something in me that was not satisfied. It's like I had to do it. No, there was no choice in a way.
We got real deep there, and it was great. I loved it. But I want to go back. I'm going to reel us in a little bit here before we finish. You said you've been working on Criaterra for, I think it's 5-7 years about.
I mean,
obviously, it's an evolution.
Almost 10 years already. Yeah.
Okay, so it's a long evolution. A lot of that is figuring out the science of this, how to create the material and all of that. At what point, and we talked about how you brought on someone who more on the business side and all this. What is the moment when you say, okay, I need someone to fill maybe that unknown unknowns quadrant, the stuff I'm not good at, the business side of things, so that I can really focus? What is the role that you first realized you needed? And what is the moment in the evolution or growth of the company where you say, I can't do the product stuff and the business stuff. I need to sort of split that off and get someone else in here to do some of that.
Yeah. So, as I mentioned, I had my sister who is a CFO that really supported me from day one, because from day one, I had to have the business skills. I mean, we applied for grants after a few months since we started, and you always have to show, business plans and so on. I think I understood early on that this part has to be led by another person. So I did explore different possibilities. And I think, to be honest, the simple answer is from day one.
Yeah. And it was really the CFO role. So like having someone who could really understand the finance aspect of this and the real finance management aspect of building the business.
Yeah. And then really with Daphne, it's really more about, beyond just understanding the financial stuff, it's about really building the business strategy. So really building the different partnerships, really building the different collaborations. So it's really, if in the early days we could only look a few years forward, now we really are looking much more into the future of how do we want to build this company, what is the most effective strategy to really make an impact and also to really make a financial success out of it, that really is appealing to the people that will support this project.
So, what advice, I'm going to go back to the advice thing for our listeners. Let's say someone doesn't have a tremendous amount of experience in, like, they're not going to be a CFO yet. Mm-hmm. They're not going to be the CMO or the CEO. Is there advice that you have for someone like that in terms of finding a company at the right moment, sort of at that right stage in their growth, in order to sort of make their play and say, I can do this. Like I can get in there, I can use the skills I have, I can grow with the company and maybe grow into the chief whatever officer role?
So I think, first of all, you have to be very clear with yourself. What is your dream? Where are you heading with this? And then I would try to look for companies that are really in their beginning. So let's say up to 10 people or something like that. And still kind of maybe between their seed and A round. So this is a moment where you know that there will be significant growth in the next few years. This is where they would definitely hire quite a few people in the next 2 to 3 years. And if you're really good, you have a real opportunity to grow and then be the one who hires those people in that specific field. So I wouldn't be afraid to enter a company that is still, in that state that everybody does a lot more than they should be doing, and everybody is kind of a little bit covering different holes that you have in the team, because you just cannot hire at all the roles that you really need. Because on the one hand, this could look a little bit like, oh, I don't know if I want to handle this. But on the other aspects, if you're really flexible and open to really understand that this is what's needed at the moment, I think you have a great opportunity, one, to explore and experience yourself in roles that you maybe did not imagine, and maybe find that there are other places that you're even better or enjoy more or are more expressed in, and then also grow to lead that area in a way that could allow you to really build a team around that place that you feel that is yours. So I would be open to exploring a bit to craft the path as you go along.
I think that's a great place to leave it, Adital. I really appreciate you taking the time to speak with us and have this conversation on careers in climate tech. And I know we had a big time difference here, so I appreciate you staying fresh later in the day. And we will put links to Criaterra's website and where people can see all the beautiful materials that you're creating and learn more about your story. So thank you again for taking the time with us today.
Thank you. Thank you. It was wonderful. Thank you very much.
Adital share the importance of demonstrating a genuine passion and alignment with a company's mission, rather than just viewing a job in climate tech as another job opportunity. And this is something that we've heard from other founders in this series. Adital, more than others, really emphasized the value of what she called a heart connection, that sense of being truly committed to the greater purpose.
Yeah, Adital's personal journey was so inspiring. The way she followed that inner intuition and calling, even when it meant going against the grain. Her willingness to immerse herself in alternate approaches and networks despite the lack of mainstream support at the time is a powerful example of the drive and dedication it takes to pioneer new solutions.
I also thought that her advice about being open to exploring different roles and responsibilities within a growing climate tech company was insightful, and something that we heard a little bit from Scott Case. The idea that you might discover an area you're even more passionate about or excel at beyond your initial expectations speaks to the value of staying flexible and curious.
Totally agreed. Adital's story and guidance provide a lot of food for thought for our listeners who may be at that turning point, wondering how to best apply their skills and passion to making a difference on climate change. We're grateful she took the time to share her entrepreneurial journey and wisdom with us today.
Thank you for listening to Conversations on Careers and Professional Life. If you enjoyed this episode, please consider sharing it with a friend or classmate. Help others find the show by leaving a rating or review on Apple Podcasts or wherever you listen. Conversations on Careers and Professional Life is produced by me, Gregory Heller, with support from the Foster School of Business Office of MBA Career Management. Learn more about the show, find show notes, and past episodes, and get in touch with me at conversationsoncareers.com. This episode was made possible in part with funding from Snowcap, a venture capital firm investing in early-stage platforms that directly and indirectly solve the climate crisis. Learn more at snowcap.vc. That's SNOCAP.vc.